And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we're talking about the Chicago Bulls passing on pick number 45 tonight and trading down to pick number 55 in the second round in the upcoming NBA draft. We're going to be talking about how this is going to impact the Chicago Bulls and what players they could potentially be passing on. And so before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Mazelis, slam dunks in games. And so in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. So make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And so if you have not got a chance to see the most recent news here around the Chicago Bulls, it looks like that they are passing on pick number 45 in tonight's draft, as they are going to be picking here in the second round now at pick number 55, because they've traded pick 45 to the Los Angeles Lakers for cash considerations here. And so if you want to read about this a little bit more, you can go over to Bleacher Nation. It is under this article written by Elias Schuster. And what I like in this article is it actually takes a quote from Marc Eversley, and this is what he said in his presser last night when he was asked about questions about their selection with Noah Essengay. But one of the questions came out about the second round, and you can see it for yourself that essentially he is saying that, look, they could trade up, they could trade down, maybe a two-way. Look, everything was on the table here for the Chicago Bulls going into the second round. This is something certainly that they have been thinking about. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and really jump into the impact slash reaction here to this news that the Chicago Bulls are going to go ahead now and they are trading back to pick number 55. And so I think that point number one here is that I wish that the Chicago Bulls would be a bit more aggressive. I think that essentially with this move here, it just shows us that, the front office is just not aggressive, because I think that at pick number 45, the Chicago Bulls certainly could go out there and they could address the front court with some very good players, which we're going to talk about that in a moment. But I think by trading down in the draft, I think that you do yourself a big disservice there as far as going out there and addressing the front court and really, helping this team progress in that department. And so, let's see what happens with the Chicago Bulls if they elect to keep the pick at pick number 55 and go ahead and draft there. And to give that a more perspective, at pick 55, there's only 59 picks in this draft because there's one pick that's not there this year. And so you're only 4 picks away from the end of the NBA draft. And so, I can't imagine there's going to be something there that necessarily fits the Chicago Bulls in terms of the players that we're going to talk about, but there might be. But I just think that as far as being aggressive as a front office, I think that this could be a big miss for the Chicago Bulls. And for the people out there that say, well, round 2 selections don't really mean anything. I mean, just look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, right, who just won a NBA championship. They had 3 undrafted players and 5 second rounders who were in their 12-man rotation. And so for anybody out there that thinks that second round picks don't matter, they absolutely matter. And for, just the fans out there that just have or remember actually what AK said in his presser, where he was talking about how he wanted a team with 9 or 10 good players. This is how you get to those 9 or 10 players. Like, you need to hit in the draft, not just the first round picks, but you also need to hit on the second round picks here. And so I think it's very interesting with this strategy here, not necessarily on board with this, because I think that the Chicago Bulls will be passing up on some pretty good talent that could come in and be an impact for you, and not taking anything away from Noah Essengay. But I think that really that is something where the Bulls are banking on the upside. And so you're hoping that he's going to be ready to produce at a pretty good level in year one. It may not happen, but, maybe one of these second round players could come in and immediately become an impact in the rotation. And so let's go ahead and let's shift gears here and look at some of the players that the Bulls could potentially be passing up on. And so the first person that I wanted to talk about is Rocco Zikarsky. And so I didn't get a chance to touch, on his profile yesterday in the video. But look, this is a guy that plays with a high motor. He's a guy that is straightforward. I think that just laterally, the quickness and things that he shows on the defensive end, I think that he could definitely provide some rim protection, which is what the Chicago Bulls need. And they also need a center that is going to get out into transition. And so I think that this could be very much a player that would fit what the Chicago Bulls would want to do. And so I think that he definitely should be, on their draft board in the second round. I'm not sure if he's going to be there at pick number 45. The next player that I wanted to talk about is another player that was mentioned during the live that we did. And also to shout out to the person that's been in the comments that had mentioned Adou Thiero. And so I think that, look, he is a terrific prospect, because when you look at the defensive versatility, I know he's listed at 6'7" or 6'8". And so I think that this is a player that can come in and is going to give you some good effort on ball with the defense. I think that he's going to have to get a little bit better with the off-ball stuff, but I like the motor. I like the energy. I like the effort level that he plays with. And I've said this several times on the channel, that if you come with that effort and you have the will, I feel like that the skills can come along. Now, was he the greatest shooter out there? No, he wasn't. I mean, I think that that's something that he would have to get better at, and he needs to become better as a shot creator, a little bit looser with his handle. But I love his motor. I like the way that he plays, and I like the way that he finishes at the rim with authority. This is a guy that looks for contact. He reminds me a little bit of CMB that went to Toronto there in the first round at pick number 9, I believe. And so this is why I think that he would be a terrific fit for the Chicago Bulls. If you're looking to add some defense there on the perimeter, a guy that could maybe get versatile and switch out on multiple players. And so another player that I think the Chicago Bulls should definitely take a look at here would be Alex Toohey. I think that he's a player that, to me, he would be a nice addition. Once again, I think that you're looking at a guy that he'll definitely play some defense. I like the fact that he has a nice catch and shoot ability. I think it's a terrific play here in the second round if you're looking for a solid rotational player. I think that he's a player just like I would say the last player here, Thiero, that we talked about. I think that he would need to get a little bit more creative with his handle or whatnot, but at 6'8", 223, 6'10" wingspan, he's got an 8'8" standing reach. He's got a 31.5 vertical. So not, the biggest vertical there, but still solid numbers at 10.6 points, 4 rebounds. He shot 72% from the free throw line and 31% from 3 and 44.9% from the field. But again, I just like the size. I like the fact that he can come in with that high motor, give you some catch and shoot ability, solid with the passer. I think he's solid off ball as well. So he's got some solid basketball IQ. So I think that this would be a terrific rotational piece in the second round. And so the next player that I think that the Chicago Bulls will certainly be passing on here is going to be Rasher Flemings. I think that, look, here's a guy that at his height, and just with his size and what he does on the offense and the defensive end, he certainly translates into a player that could be a 3-and-D type of player. We've talked about him before, and I just like his upside. I think that he would definitely fit with the style of play that the Chicago Bulls want to play with as far as getting up and down the court. And so I think that he would be a solid pick here in the second round. I'm a little shocked that he actually did get to the second round. I thought he would go at least late in the first round, but the Bulls most certainly are passing up on him. And I mean, look, even if you're at pick 45, maybe there was something you could have did to move up to go ahead and secure him. You were dead middle in round 2 at pick number 45, but we won't know because they're now down at pick 55. And so we'll see what happens. Another guy that I think the Bulls are going to be passing up on here surely is going to be Maxime Raynaud. I think that this was a terrific pick for the Chicago Bulls when you talk about a player that could come in and I think immediately impact what you're doing here. And so I got him as a Brook Lopez type of comp. I also see a lot of Quentin Post with him too. And so, Quentin Post was a solid contributor for the Golden State Warriors. And so this is a guy that got progressively better as far as the score. I think he got pretty crafty down low inside. He's a guy that is looking to play some defense, even though right now I think he's a little bit more of a drop coverage type of defender. But I did like what I was hearing in his interview when he was talking about getting to the track, doing some workouts and stuff like that. And that most certainly will lead to some quickness. And I think that he could maybe open up a little bit more defensively and with his range or whatnot, and be able to step out there against the perimeter centers, and then also to maybe try to wall up some of those guards, or at least slow them down and get them to his help on the defensive end of the floor. And so I like the intangibles that he presents, and I definitely think that you get a player that can go inside and outside. And so it's unfortunate, but I think that this player most certainly is not going to be on the draft board, and I think that this is a player that the Bulls would miss out on. And lastly, another player that I forgot to mention here yesterday, and that's going to be Ryan Kalkbrenner. And so he's a guy that, to me, he's solid with what he can do. This is a guy that has a pretty nice inside-outside game. He's not the quickest player, but I definitely think that, man, he could come in and he could do some things here for the Chicago Bulls. He played in a pretty good offensive system there at Creighton. And so I think that, man, what he does as far as a center, it definitely translates to the Chicago Bulls as far as being able to knock down the three. I think that he can also be a top of the key type of passing hub as well. And I think he knows how to use his range to get some block shots as far as his length or whatnot. And so I did like that. And so it's just unfortunate that I think that this is another player that I think the Chicago Bulls are unfortunately going to miss out on. But I definitely think that this would be a solid pick here for the Bulls. If they were still, in that range to get him, maybe they could have moved up or whatnot, but I think we'll never really find out. But anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about these players that I listed that the Chicago Bulls could potentially be passing up on. I mean, we'll see what happens. Maybe something happens where these players slide down the draft board, but I'm just not seeing that. But let's see if the Chicago Bulls are even going to stay with this second round pick, because like I said before, if you're going to turn things around with this franchise, I think at some point in time, you're going to have to take chances in the draft, because even if it is a second round selection, it could lead to something for you. I just talked about how the Thunder have used 5 second rounders that are in their rotation. And with the Chicago Bulls, when you look at it, the frustration that we have as fans here, we've had 12 playoff appearances since 1998, when we last saw this team win a NBA championship. And then the Chicago Bulls have only made the playoffs just once since the 2017-2018 season. And so, just at some point, if you continue to do what you've always done, you'll continue to get what you've always gotten. And the Chicago Bulls, they just haven't gotten enough. And so you have to change things up. You cannot punt in the second round of the NBA draft, even if it is the second round. And so I think that there's still some value. But you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about the Chicago Bulls now passing up pick number 45 for cash considerations and trading it to the Lakers, who will more than likely probably get a center. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bulls are at pick 55, just a couple picks from the end of tonight's NBA draft. And so anyway, as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.